I want to thank everyone for staying here to the 3:30 session. My name is Brodie, and I am in charge of a company called Gamezebo, which is an editorial site and community for casual games. Download games, MMOs, Facebook apps, everything. Before we get started, I want to have every member of the panel introduce themselves.
Sure. Hi, everybody. How are you? How many people here, I just have a question. How many people here already have an application with some sort of virtual goods? And how many of you are, have virtual currency? And how many of you are making money off of your virtual currency and virtual goods? Okay, the rest of you see me later, okay? My name is Shukla. I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my third company, and by far my favorite, called Offerpal Media. And we're in the business of monetizing social applications that have virtual currency or virtual goods or any kind of premium subscription services or products.
My name is Mihaly. I'm currently the CEO of Sparkplay Media, but I'm probably on the panel because about 11 years ago I started a company called Iron Realms Entertainment making niche MMOs, text MMOs, or MUDs as you might know them. And we started using the virtual asset sales model back then, started introducing virtual currencies and whatnot. And although Iron Realms never grew beyond the kind of low seven-figure stage, we learned a lot of lessons over the years. And with Sparkplay, we're trying to take those lessons and expand them to a larger market.
Hi, my name is Caplan. I'm the president at Super Rewards. We're a virtual currency monetization platform for social networking apps, MMOGs, casual gaming sites, etc. In essence, we allow consumers to purchase virtual currency either directly via their credit card, PayPal, or mobile phone, or indirectly via filling out one of many thousand different advertising offers we have, which in essence pay the developer an equivalent dollar sum.
I'm David Perry. I've been in the industry now for about 25 years making professional console-style games. And I teamed up with, Atari bought my company. I was kind of deciding what should I do next. And I teamed up with a guy called Howard Marks, and he was the chairman of Activision Studios right through the 90s. And so we kind of, the two of us are very much game-oriented. So we're very interested in how we can make very high-quality games, but we're also very open-minded. We went to Asia and Korea, looked at the games there, met with all the major companies there, the CEOs, talked about what their visions are, and we thought, wow, we see a real opportunity here. So we bought the name Acclaim, which is a well-known video game name, and we've decided to go after this market, and we've been doing that for a few years now. So far we absolutely love it, and we're definitely doubling down on the whole idea of virtual goods.
Cool. So far today, in other panels, we've talked about like what users want, how social networks, virtual economy. This panel is all about money and making money, and hopefully making more money than you're spending. First question is, and basically the first set of questions are all about metrics, me asking you for proprietary confidential information, and you guys not give me any information, but I figured I'd ask them anyway because that's what the audience wants. First question is, how many online games and applications with virtual items are out right now or are planned to be released this year in the US and worldwide? And that includes MMOs, social network apps, everything. And what's the size of the total market? So who's going to dodge this question?
I think a couple of speakers earlier today have talked about the 1.5 to $2 billion market, and I think if you think about how many users out there are participating in these sorts of activities, and let's call it a 600 million number on a global basis, and you look at what an average monthly spend might be on a global basis, I think the numbers you get to are pretty fair in the 1.5 to $2 billion number. I think what that doesn't cover, though, is the secondary market that what everyone has been talking about today, the black market perhaps, where you have, upwards of 400,000 people employed around the globe to grow the side economies, and that could be another $500 to $1 billion that's not included in that number. I think Super Awards we see directly, along with Offerpal, into the social media space in particular. Our best guess for this year is that the virtual goods market on the social networking space this year is probably a $150 million market.
Yeah, for us, we're, all these numbers aren't really published, right? So to some extent, you just have to make it up as you go along, and that's not cool. But what I did do is I started to try to really count them, like how many are there? And so we started to make a list. We published it at GameIndustryMap.com. You'll see there's just a list of MMOs, and we actually gave up counting after 400. So we got 400 different ones and have all the details on the games. And so the reality is there's lots. And the reason there's lots is when you go to Asia, you get to see them all. And the other thing is that it doesn't really matter how many there are now, because there's going to be 10 times that in the future. The thing that hasn't really happened yet in this market is we haven't really fully opened up the potential of all the devices that people are using. So we've heard about the iPhone, but what about all the other things too? The Nintendo DSi, which is the next DS, is going to have games that you can download, which then means microtransactions. You can buy microtransactions today on an Xbox 360. You can also buy them on a PS3, but they don't have free-to-play yet. So once they do proper free-to-play and let us do full downloads, and I think then they'll see the size of the market, because they'll get a lot more players playing those games than the ones that they're selling at full price. So the point is that there's lots and lots of different formats still to come online that are going to offer us a market too. So I think overall, as those start to open up, that number 400 is just going to explode. I mean, really, it's just going to explode. The amount of people that start to offer microtransactions in their game was going to be huge. The game industry releases like over 1,000 titles a year, and so those are all going to be including this kind of system at some point down the road.
So I agree. I think it's a huge market. What we did was we did a bottoms-up analysis of social games and casual games and MMOJs, and we looked at MySpace and Facebook and all of the social networks. And we looked at the number of applications that were on there that had virtual currency. We took a percentage of users that would come to a virtual payment system, and what percentage of them would complete an offer. And we come up with a 2.5 billion market, total available market, going to 6 billion by 2010.
Yeah, I can really only add to what Dave said, which is, it's going to be enormous. It's large now, and it's going to be larger in the future. I think you're going to see the Western market moving to less of a subscription model and more of a free-to-play model like Asia's done.
Okay, so Anya kind of stole my thunder before when she asked this question. How many people in this room are planning to create a virtual world or are involved in one right now? Okay, it's a lot of people. So is there a danger that we may be having a virtual item bubble now in the same way we had a .com bubble or a real estate bubble, where there's so many people entering the space and a finite amount of customers and money, money being the key operative word right now, where a lot of companies can get in but also can fall?
Well, what I can say to that is that although the global economy appears to be tanking, the virtual economy seems to be very healthy. And I would really recommend that everybody take a good look at this. We find that our users, and there's a lot of statistics about how many users are regular and loyal users, to the games that we power, and how many of them take offers, and how many of them are repeat users, and how many of them take offers more than once. And we have people taking 45, 50 offers, in a month. These are very avid and engaged players. So I just believe that people have different entertainment profiles, and once they are hooked onto a particular game, and they will eventually tire or bore of it, they're extremely loyal and avid at that time, and then they switch their loyalties to perhaps a different type of game. But I really see that virtual economy actually being much healthier than our real economy.
So I don't actually think that there is any demand for virtual items. I think what there is a demand for games, and once someone values the context of that game, then the demand for virtual items grows within it. So I don't think players start off saying, hey, I want to buy, I in isolation want to buy a virtual sword. What they do is they start playing, World of Warcraft, or they start playing, whatever, and then they decide, I want to buy gold, or I want this. So I don't think in isolation there's any demand for it. It's just about getting players to value the context that your game takes place within. And once you do that, they'll spend money, whether it's via subscription in some cases, or whether it's via virtual goods.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, well, I'll dive in then. The thing is that what we find is that people generally, I don't think it's going to get old at all for them. They just want choice. So if you ask them, you know, what is it you want? The answer is more choice, more of this, more of that, more of the other. It's kind of like food. You don't get tired of food to some extent. These guys absolutely love this stuff. And if anything, the thing that you also need to think about is that it's actually a very honest business model, because you're really betting on your game much more. I'm from the console world, so we used to throw the game out on the shelves and hope it catches. People would buy it, take it home, and they're kind of stuck with it to some extent. In this situation, they can play your game, they can think about it, they can play it and play it and play it until they're absolutely in love with it, and then they finally go, you know what, I love this game, I'm going to start using my credit card and buying stuff for it. And so that, if anything, is very healthy, because that means you're only paying for games you love. So in a weird way, it's going to filter out a lot of stuff. And if you've got games that people start paying for, you're in pretty good shape.
I guess I've got only two other things to add. If you look at, you know, the current economic environment and think that that's impacting this market, go back to 2002 and look at what EA's stock price did during the last downturn. The gaming industry as a whole is relatively counter-cyclical, and the less people are traveling, the less people are spending on other activities. In fact, in many ways, the more people are spending on this space. And when you've now got $1, $2 payments instead of very large payments, these are the sorts of payments people are still going to be willing to make. So we believe that we're really at the first innings of a very big secular growth trend in this space, and so don't believe it's overplayed at all.
So basically, if the economy in the real world's crashing, you guys would say that within the virtual economies, no impact at all. Still,
well,
billion-dollar business.
I think one difference, and this isn't an original thought on my part, Jeremy Liu pointed this out to me right before this panel, which is the difference between the crash in early 2000 or 2001 and now is that consumer confidence didn't drop in 2001. It was looked at as it's their problem, not my problem. Now it's, you know, the current crash is looked at as this is Main Street's problem. And so when consumer confidence drops, although I tend to agree with you, I think that it remains to be seen what that impact is going to be, you know, as opposed to the last crash.
I think eventually it'll have some impact, but there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind about the kind of games we power on social networks and outside. They're essentially played, it's skewed heavily towards a younger audience, students, and so those guys are spending a lot of money and they're not even working. So what's the economy going to do? Put them out of a job? I mean, they don't have one right now.
Maybe they're going to have to take a job.
That's their entertainment. That's their entertainment. So, you know, I think it would be pretty much an Armageddon-like situation for it to really impact very heavily. Now, I'll tell you the impact it will have. It'll have an impact on advertisers. So remember what Offerpal does and Super Rewards and others is, you know, not only offer you alternative ad-supported payment systems, but these have to be powered by advertisers. And so, you know, somebody like a subscription-based, you know, Blockbuster service might say, well, gee, I'm going to cut down my budget. But even then, we're sort of at the very end of their budget-cutting cycle, because the first thing they cut is display and other expensive forms of not that measurable, you know, spending. And performance advertising always is a beneficiary because you're really paying for that consumer that you get. But even so, it will have an impact if this persists too long.
Okay. And I pretty much agree with all members in the panel. I mean, I think that, yeah, on the one hand, people will have less disposable income. On the other hand, you know, if I can't buy that $500 suit or Lamborghini in real life and I could just buy it for $1 online, I'm buying 5 of them. So I could see it both ways. It's too bad food doesn't work that way. So that kind of brings up the next question about demographics. With my background, yeah, I Gamezebo, and before that I was working over at Yahoo. You know, we did a lot of stuff with casual game downloads, and there was a specific target demographic, which was middle-aged females, strangely enough. So question is, for virtual items, is there a specific demographic and market that we're going after, or is it many demographics in market? And if so, how do you target different you know, virtual item strategies to those different demographics?
Well, our company's trying to actually, I guess the creative vision that we had was we wanted it to be like a television network. So when you look, if we had a logo, it would literally be a set of monitors with all these different games, so that when you show up, whatever it is that turns you on. You might be into ponies, for example. If you're into ponies, then you can come and play our pony game. Or if you're into very hardcore, epic MMORPG battle, we have that. If you want to drive, you can do that too. And so the idea really is to try and paint a very wide spectrum. And so we literally do get to that point where some of our games, we have, dressing up dolls and things like that, that literally those games are designed in HTML, so they're so basic and simple and it's amazing. They're very, very popular for those age groups, but they're usually going to have a parent involved at that point when you start to go really young. But the point is, we're going for the full network, and that's partly that whole idea of the long tail, really. So when you go on Amazon.com, there's lots of choice, and you go find what you want to see. When you turn on the television, you go to the TV station that you like fly fishing, you go watch fly fishing on TV. So that's kind of our ultimate goal, is to end up with a choice that everyone in this room, when you show up, there'll be some game there that gets you excited. And those games are all microtransaction based, every single one. So we have to find a way on each of those games creatively to get you to desire items within them.
I think Dave's approach is right, which is that he's focusing he's looking at what demographics the games have, as opposed to wondering whether there's a certain demographic for virtual items. Because I think to ask whether there's a certain demographic for virtual items is kind of like asking, is there a certain demographic for physical items, right? It's more about how can you create value such that people want to buy things within the experience you've created. So, look at golf, right? A golf club, if a game of golf went away tomorrow, a golf club would have very little value. It's an awkwardly shaped stick. Unless you melt it down, it has very little value. It's the context of golf that makes, bankers willing to spend $2,000 on a driver. So I don't think it's about a demographic for virtual items. It's about the demographics for the experiences you create that the virtual items are sold within.
If there's any banker spending $2,000 on a golf club, I think Congress wants to talk to you. What I have to say about the demographics is every demographic is valuable, and to attract the right advertisers, you have to have enough volume. So what I find typically for MMOGs is skewed male and sort of a younger audience. And the middle-aged female is it remains a very desirable demographic, and advertisers will pay a lot to reach those. One segment I think that deserves more attention now is international, how to monetize international audiences, because social networks by their very nature have built up huge international audiences, primarily going unmonetized or not monetizing at the same level as US traffic. And so that would be an area of focus to find advertisers in those places to monetize that traffic.
I agree 100% with the other three speakers. The only distinction I'd like to make is, in our mind, there's a difference between a virtual good and a virtual currency. A virtual currency, which is what Super Rewards provides, can be used to purchase both a real good and a virtual good. So for us, there's a much broader demographic, obviously, associated with a virtual currency than there may be with a virtual good. Although that said, we still think that it's a pretty broad split, really like the social networks themselves, for virtual goods as well.
Okay. So let's talk about metrics. What's the conversion rate of free players or users to paying players or users either on your experience, on your product, or in general?
I'll be the first to give the game away. If we look at our data across the board, approximately on a monthly basis, the apps that are using us in the social networking space have roughly 30 to 35 million monthly unique active users. We think that approximately 12 to 15 million of those would come to the Super Rewards offer page on a monthly basis, and that 50% of those users would click on one of our offers. The approximate completion rate of people clicking on offers is roughly 20 or 25%. So doing the maths at the end of the day comes up with roughly 5% of users are accounting for paid.
I think that asking just simply what the conversion rate of free players to paying players is might be, with all due respect, actually a little simplistic, because someone that spends $5, on virtual currency, over the course of 2 years is a lot different from someone who spends $2,000. And so, I'd almost look at the $5 player over 2 years as he's basically a free player, whereas the $2,000 player is, in other words, it's a continuum, and you can't just make a binary distinction between whether they're free or whether they're paying.
And without the free players, obviously the paid players don't exist, and so an important part of that economy nonetheless.
I'll take a stab at that. So what we see is really differs by game genre. So I'll add a little bit more color to the stats that you've heard. So if it's a very engaging multiplayer game, and it's at its height of popularity, you would have close to 50% of that. You should target at least 50% of your users to be paying in some way. If you have virtual good, then you're really looking more at a 5 to 10% number, virtual good or a softer avatar-based game. And then you can change these metrics in your game for everybody who's looking at monetization potential by offering more sinks for the virtual currency and by making your items more premium and really giving away free items until you get to sort of branded and premium items, and then by promoting it effectively across your site and integrating it more into gameplay. So we have actually a white paper of 20 tips to increase the take of your virtual currency and to get people to pay. And we'd be happy to share that with you if you give me your card.
So we have about 7 million users now. We have the business model we have is very simple, actually. We make around $70, $75 a player, and it costs us about $30 to buy those players. About usually 10% we actually manage to get to buy. But overall, it is interesting because when you start looking across the different games, they are different. Like they're different, just depending on the style of game and what's going on in it. But overall, that's our model, and it's actually we don't feel we're doing a great job at all. There's a lot of room. All this discussion about the funnel and people saying the funnel's important, it's really, really important, and we have a lot of work to do still to get our funnels sorted out. We're moving to Flash as well. It's the obvious way to go. The next, I believe the next Flash is going to be the full 3D one, not Flash 10, but Flash 11, which turns that into a platform. So hopefully we're able to tighten up our funnel and bring those and bring that $30 cost down. And because we won't have so many players that are going, I don't want to download this big client. We're about to actually launch a new game with a 4 gigabyte client. Just think about that. So, that's crazy. We got to get away from that, and we are going to get away from that. So that's what's going to bring those numbers back down. On the other hand, it's still profitable, so it still actually works.
Okay, so now that we talked about metrics and how much you can make, next question is how do you, what's the psychology of getting someone who's playing on your game or application for free and getting them to do that first purchase? Because it would seem to me that's really like the biggest step to making money, going from the free player to actually taking out your credit card and throwing your first $1 down.
Yeah, I met one of the guys from Giant. Giant is now technically #1 in China, and the guy said, what we do is we make the game as really as horrible as possible for the user that money will fix. So ultimately, once they start spending money, then things will ease back up again. And I think it's a little aggressive as a stance, but on the other hand, we actually are always trying to think about what's going to get that first $1 out of their pocket. And there's all kinds of tricks you can do with pre-gifting them items. You can do that to tease them along as well. You're giving them an item slightly higher level than they're able to use, so that they'll stick around and try to get there. And they'll want to level up quicker to get to it. Experience growth is by far the most valuable thing. So if you make special offers, buy today. It's basically all the retail tricks that you see. The train's leaving the station. If you want it, you better hop on it right now. And you can have an experience boost that's going to be really significant. That's 4 times or whatever. That will get the credit card out of the pocket. Another way to do it, which is Giant's trick, is to charge a very, very, very low amount to do something. So like it could be 5 cents to do something, which is very like they have a gambling system in their game. 5 cents to gamble, and if you do that, then it doesn't seem like much to you. You're like, oh, it's only 5 cents, but you keep doing it over and over and over once you get the coins in your account. So there's all kinds of tricks that people are using right now to get that first $1 going, but it's usually that They're usually trying to think about what it is that's going to open up the world to you the most, like what's the most important thing to you right now. And sometimes they'll try to hit you with that on an emotional high, so they know at this moment you're most vulnerable right now, and then they'll hit you with it.
Following on from Dave's point, I think allowing users to try before you buy through providing a managed offer platform like Super Rewards does, you can have users pay for things without actually taking out their credit card. So they can get used to paying for items within the game, perhaps by filling out a survey which takes them a minute to do. And it's that hitting them at that sort of 5 to 8 minute mark of a social media game where they've got just enough of a taste to know that, yeah, I really like this game, but haven't got beyond to get bored with it. That's the point in time where you want to hit them with their first purchase. And making that purchase as easy as possible, perhaps through not even requiring a credit card of some sort, is really important.
Yeah, I agree with everything the panelists have said so far. You know, following on what you said about letting users kind of pre-test items, one thing we did at Iron Realms is let players loan each other items, but the item will automatically repop back into the loaner's inventory, so the player can't get ripped off. And what that does is, you know, it means I can loan, you know, my friend Bob the sword of, you know, Vorpal awesomeness, and he gets to play with it for an hour or half an hour, whatever I set, and you know, it goes away, right? But he's gotten to really feel tangibly what it feels like to have that item, and that's what's really important to players. It's that emotional connection, that feeling like I really want this, either because I see this guy that has it and I want to be like him, or I just got my ass kicked by this guy and I want to get revenge, or I just want to make the game easier for myself.
Okay. So just to add to that, I think the general theme is here that you need to let the user first get engaged with the game and enjoy it and get into it. So there needs to be some levels where they're playing for free, essentially, and gaining, you know, a taste of the game. Then you want to basically get them into the competition of the game. So we have, for example, in MMOGs, looked at different currency levels, point levels within the game where they start to avidly take offers, and there is a certain range, and it's different for different genres. And nothing like competition will make them take out and pay for stuff. So if you can get that competition going, it's really important. One word of caution though, you definitely want to make if it's a competitive game, you want to make sure that it's a level playing field. And the level playing field means that you can't just buy yourself your way into a skill-based game. So you don't want to ruin the competition. There's several other interesting things that we found. On virtual goods, particularly dating, when people are gifting items, those are actually pretty popular too, because people want to impress you with the fact that they paid for this beautiful premium rose versus just the free one. Same with cards. And that, if you can get them into seeing the difference between the two, that tends to work pretty well too.
Okay, so I wanted to follow up on something Matt had said a little bit earlier. You were pretty much alluding that there's, you're really going after people who are spending the $5,000 or the lot of money. What I call, in the casino business, we call the whales. So I was just kind of curious, like, what percentage of revenues that you're seeing are from the hardcore players, like the whales, versus just the average user, and how do you convert someone from doing their first purchase into becoming a whale within your virtual item world?
Well, in that specific case, I'm not sure my experience is all that applicable to what a lot of the audience is doing, since Iron Realms was composed of extremely hardcore players, and it's a very niche product. And as a result, I think that's one reason we saw players willing to spend, $1,000 plus on an individual item. In terms of getting them to convert from being a small buyer into a large buyer, it really comes down to making them value the experience they're having. If you've got the money and you're really engaged in the experience, you spend all of your free time doing this, then chances are you'll spend a lot of money on the game. It's just like any hobby you have in real life, right? If you get really into golf or really into skiing or whatever, chances are you're going to be willing to spend money on it. And if you have the money, you'll spend more.
Yeah, I remember having that thought actually as I was watching the new Halo game, the last Halo game. It's just it's to some extent, and Halo's a great game, but it's a missed opportunity there for them, because they're setting their limit at $50, or $60 for the game, and that's it. That's all they're going to get, and yet, on an MMO from Asia, so we'll take an MMO from Asia, and we'll have people that spend $2,000 buying items within the game, no problem. The problem is that if you think about the quality of the game, if you were to take something as good as Halo or Gears of War or one of the really big American titles in America and then add this layer to it, I'm sure they would set records. I think they would have 10,000, 15, 25,000 dollar players who just want that full Halo experience. And so I guess my point is we're nowhere near, we just haven't even close to seeing what the limit is for this, depending on the quality of the software that they're playing. If they get something that's AAA, that people just absolutely, like Grand Theft Auto microtransaction, what is that going to be worth? Well, actually APB is being made right now, so we'll see if they end up putting items in there. But ultimately that, I don't think it's been really truly defined as what's the upper limit and what those, how many people you could get there. I think the answer is a lot more than we're seeing today, but the quality of the software is going to have to improve.
We've seen some bizarre things. We've seen people spending $500 in a day on a virtual slot machine with no prizes of any sort and no recognition other than the league table. So I absolutely agree that the creative content that's going to come in from the leading game studios in the world is going to completely change the game, and we're going to see people spending a vast amount of money on virtual goods provided by those players.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we're already seeing that, right? Look at the black market in World of Warcraft and the size of it. I mean, that's AAA, and there's a reason that it's such a large market for black market currency.
And some of the games with somewhat low production values also have really, unbelievably avid users. I know there's a buy and sell your friends game which was not accepting cash, where somebody from Saudi Arabia was contacting us constantly, offering us thousands of dollars, just to get the points from this game which weren't available for cash. He didn't want to do any more offers because he wanted to spend $10,000 and buy everybody in Saudi Arabia or whatever. And we contacted the game developer and he said, no, that would ruin the dynamics of the game. He cannot buy it. He cannot buy it. And so we've already seen some inklings of when people get engaged. Now I do remember one email just a few days ago that I got from, please make my mom stop playing this game. She's hooked. It's ruined her life. And you know who you are. That it's a very engaging game, and it's ruined her life. That's all she does. Could you please stop this game? I ask you to shut it down.
Okay, cool. So, I think that was my mom actually. Okay, so here's another question. We've got people on this panel who are more in the game space, and people on the panel, I'm not going to pigeonhole. You guys pretty much do everything, social applications and web pages, everything. So what presents the bigger market for virtual items? Games and MMOs or social apps like Facebook? Is there an either or?
I don't know if there's really a difference. I mean, it's just, I look at Facebook as just another platform. It's like the iPhone is not a mobile phone, it's a platform. So with Facebook, MySpace, as I say, the consoles and things like that as well, they're all just separate platforms. And so each of them, there's this really interesting cross-pollination that's happening too, where you're getting the Flash games going on the web, on MySpace, on Facebook. But the thing about it is at the end of the day, given the choice, I would actually go back to the web. There's 30,000 Flash game sites. And if you go to, some of them are really big, like Congregate and things like that. When you go on their sites, generally those games that are on there are very, very basic games. So you're looking at very simple little Flash applications. Sometimes they do quite well, so they think, oh, we got to put this on Facebook too, and we'll make more money from it. But they're not thinking big at all, right? So when you go have a look at the actual applications that they're distributing through these networks, in general, there's 16,000 of them at this point, and those 16,000 applications generally are very, very weak, and they're also very hard to find the good ones because most of the sites are designed with a front page with 20 apps on it, and you have to click next 400 times if you want to see all the games. So a lot of the games never get seen, which means that the ones on that front page keep getting more and more popular. That's kind of the world we live in right now, but I think that game will change when people start to invest heavily into Flash games. And I love the fact that I'm hearing this over and over here, that people are doing that. Because when they give those games to Congregate, it's gonna make Congregate's day. Miniclip, people like that, Oberon, they're gonna be so happy that you showed up with something with a really high production quality, like a full professional game that runs in Flash. But think about that distributed across 30,000 of those sites, because you can bet they all want that game. They don't want the little ones anymore. They want the the big game, the one that they can wrap ads all the way around and actually make revenue from, but you're making microtransaction revenue from it. So to some extent, there's a 30,000, website platform just waiting and dying for that content. So again, with microtransactions, you can actually make money that way. So it's something I'm expecting to see. As the people who are investing into Flash aggressively, I think you'll start to see that really start to yield money in the next couple of years.
I think it's a false dichotomy too. I mean, I think you're going to see MMOs, extending tendrils out to cell phones, into Facebook. You see Guy Online, for example, has a Bebo app that was one of the top 10 traffic referrers for a while. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, such that eventually you won't be able to distinguish between an MMO and a pure, social network app, for instance.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with Matt. I think that the truly massively multiplayer online gaming is going to be a web browser-based game that's accessed through one of the social platforms. You're going to have tens of millions of people playing a World of Warcraft quality game at one time through the Facebook or MySpace or other social networking platform.
We're actually, wanted to touch on that, we're actually trying right now, for the last year, we've been investing in this concept of why is Flash lame? The reality is it's kind of got this perception of being lame because it's Flash, and it's not a console, so you wouldn't put a serious team on that. But the point is that nowadays, with everyone being so connected, we have virtual servers, as far as clouds go, so we can actually create technology that lets you run the game on our servers. So the fact that your business computer isn't that great is no problem for us. So what we do is we'll run it on our servers, and then we serve the final results out to your Flash client, which makes Flash look a lot more impressive, because in fact it can almost do anything. I could have any amount of AI running in the background on our servers that are then served up to you. So this is something we Tryon recently got an investment based on this, and that's another sort of justification that this potentially could be another solution for it, which is to keep the barrier down, meaning anybody can just log in, click and play, no registration, no download, no install, and yet have a really, really sort of compulsive, high quality experience. And that's something that we really want to try to invest our time into.
It beats the 4 gig download, huh?
No 4 gig. We're actually going to market it that way. It's the biggest game ever.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
What I see is, Facebook and MySpace is certainly growing, and so are other social networks. But really, any engaging game eventually has a target of taking their users to their own destination website. So I think if you really have an engaging game and you really want to now expand its production values, I think the social platforms might actually limit you. So it's a great place to provide a front end and then draw users at another level into your own destination site.
Okay. Okay, cool. So it's right now 4:15, so I have 2 more questions, and then we're going to take it out to the audience. First one is 5 years from now, we're all sitting here, same table, all looking as attractive and young as ever, talking about the same topic, generating real revenues from virtual goods. What is it we're talking about?
I actually don't think we're going to be here in 5 years, because this isn't going to be big enough to hold the amount of people that will want to.
It'll be at Pac-Bell Park, SBC Park.
But I think by that point we'll have Flash clients will be fully 3D. This whole thing will have been proven out. There'll be a lot of articles in the press about how on earth did they get 100 million players in one game, and someone will have pulled that off. And it's going to be interesting to see, because there's a lot of players right now, and in Asia. There's no secret here at all. This is something people are working on right now. So it's something we're going to get to see in the next 18 months. So 5 years from now, we'll have the answers.
I think another thing we're going to be talking about is government regulation of virtual currency and virtual economies. How that takes form, I don't know, but certainly there is activity within Congress already looking into virtual currencies, looking into whether cashing out a Second Life is, if that's a taxable event, well, that is a taxable event. But whether exchanging currency within a game is a taxable event. You're already seeing Korea and China, the government's getting involved, and I have no doubt that at some point Western governments are going to start getting more actively involved as well.
How many Wall Street investment bankers are now employed trading virtual currencies on the global markets? But in all jest, I do think there are going to be a whole bunch of derivative industries, perhaps outside of gaming, that look at virtual goods in a very, very different way. And I think there'll be a whole variety of new things we're talking about, which we can't even imagine today.
So I think we will have a very big, I agree with the panelists in the sense that I think it'll be a big and vibrant industry. I think it'll be much more global in nature. So we'll have a lot more people visiting from, if we have the conference here at all, and there'll be a lot of people from outside. And then the one thing that I do want to point out is I think that mobile will be really, it already is, but sort of mobile platforms and what people are doing on their phones will be at a whole different level as well.
Same, you're talking about like iPhone and Android, or are you talking about just all mobile?
All mobile.
Okay. Okay, so last question is kind of a fun question. I want to ask all you to share your most interesting virtual good and currency stories. So just kind of go through in a row. So what's the most expensive good the most expensive good that you've seen that has been bought or sold?
We're actually designing one right now. When we catch people, there's some cheats that pop up in the games and they get put on the web, and so people try them out. So they're not really cheaters, but they saw it on the web and they couldn't help themselves and they started to do it, and we caught them, and we got tired of arguing, did you do it or didn't? So we always have screenshots of them. So we saw screenshots of them actually cheating, and but they're in jail. We actually take them and teleport them into a jail, so they're actually stuck in a real jail cell. So we're actually thinking of charging them to get out of jail. Now, normally we just leave them in there. So we might do that because we feel really bad about it because we know there's a certain percentage. If it's true hacking, they're gone. But if it's just like, well, they read something on the web, we might charge them. So that would actually be our most expensive item.
And it could be, and because we're running out of time, it could be either the most expensive, most bizarre, just the craziest virtual item store you got.
The craziest one I've got is a dance game we got from China. It's called Dance Online, and it's got some really, really crazy stuff in it. Like you dress up in panda suits and all kinds of stuff to humiliate you if you do badly in the game. But as virtual item-wise, the thing they had was a slimming potion. So if you don't play the game, you get fat. Meaning if you don't log in for 4 or 5 days, you come back and your character's actually getting fatter and fatter. So you have to buy a slimming potion. So I'm doing the translations and I'm going through and I go slimming potion, and then they had a fat potion, and I'm like, but you're already getting fat. Why would anyone pay to get super fat? I mean, this makes you like super fat. And they said because in Asia there's so many slim people, we always wondered what that would be like to be fat. And so they buy this as a virtual item. It's crazy.
We sold a godhood once for a few $1,000s, so the player actually got to be a god in game. Not really possible in a large game, but again, my last company was not that large. So,
I guess for us, we in the currency space, we saw a self-described model pay $800 one day on a friends for sale like clone to get to the top of the most popular. I guess she thought it was a marketing expense or something like that.
So we had the Saudi gentleman trying to spend $15,000. We started at $1,500, then went up to $15,000 to buy a whole bunch of people that he was trying to dominate. And we do have people spend a lot of money in sending each other virtual lap dances in a particular game.
Which game is that?
You'll have to try all of them, and just go to the Offerpal site and check it out. And
Nice.
They're sending each other very expensive lap dances. We also, though, have people that will spend a lot of money, in, there's a make a baby game, for example, where if you don't, you make a baby with your friends or by yourself, and then you dress this baby, you feed this baby, you burp the baby, take the baby to school. And if you don't do these activities and you don't buy good food for your baby, you get reported for baby neglect. And so there's a lot of people that spend a lot of money when they get reported for baby neglect, their virtual baby neglect.
Okay, so let's see if anyone in the audience can top that. Anyone have any questions? The guy at the mic needs to. Okay.
What are your thoughts on the different payment methods in terms of their strengths, weaknesses, and growth opportunities?
So the question is, what do you think of the different payment methods and the strengths and weaknesses, growth opportunities, right? Okay.
I think that the best way to look at payment methods is have as many as possible. The more ways for users to pay flat out is just better. I mean, I think I can say that with 100% certainty. I'm pretty sure everyone here is going to agree with me too.
So that's exactly what we do. We just put them in order and just keep adding them country by country by country. So it's you have to decide if you're a global business or not. If you're a global business, you just have to slowly, step by step, go all around the world and accept their payment systems, and they'll bring in that amount of revenue for their territory. It's money you just don't want to leave on the leave off the table. You want to get it. So that's what we do.
Yeah, offering the most is obviously a good thing. Obviously, depending on the demographic, the age group of the user base that are using your game or application, where they're based, I mean, they're going to be different alternatives that work better for different folks in different parts of the world. The one additional piece that both Offerpal and Super Rewards provide is obviously the offers. What we find typically in the social media space is that 20% of the people, 15 to 20% of the people will pay directly, and the remainder will pay by filling out offers. So expanding your market by having that alternative, we think, is a good thing.
I think this question is coming from somebody, presumably you have a game or a site, or you're planning to have one, or you have many. Just a word of caution on directly offering several payment methods. So, PayPal is a really good brand. However, PayPal does not have any protection for digital goods. So if there's a fraud in digital goods, you're on your own. You don't get the money. And if somebody's actually planning to defraud your game or system, this could be very, very expensive. So you really have to do fraud management. The overhead becomes a lot. So do watch out for the overhead of payment systems, just in terms of managing them and the protection that you have. I really would like to applaud the mobile category. I mean, I really see it growing. And of course, it started off as a European or international phenomena, but it's really getting popular in the US as well. And so I'd look at the different mobile payment methods and figure out how to get those at a very reasonable rate.
I think there's a secret to it, which is you're going to have a page, right, with lots of payment systems on it. I mean, we take payments on home phones, everything we can take it on. And the point is you just steer them where you want them to go. So the minute the guy's clicking on home phone, if you don't want to do that, you can say, hey, we were having a special on credit cards today, or go over here and see the special discount. And so you can steer them around a little bit, because obviously each payment system isn't equal, the amount of dollars you actually get at the end of the day. So you have that control too.
Okay, any other audience questions? Going once, okay. Got it. You've got the biggest brain power here for economics and virtual items. Anyone? Okay, right there, maybe.
When you're figuring out your pricing of virtual goods, can you go through the different processes that you think about when creating an economy and figuring out how big your sink is going to be and how big your funnel is and the faucets and stuff?
So what we do with virtual items is, we're kind of fortunate now, we have multiple games out. So what we do is we do a very heavy analytics, just like you saw earlier. And we look through the analytics and we look at how the items are selling in other games. So you can kind of get a feeling for, this is going to be pretty popular because it's experience, or it's a new storage system, like more storage space, something that a lot of people are going to want. And so you can kind of get a feel for how it's going to perform and what people would be willing to pay for it. But I think what we've learned is always go high. So if you have to guess, go high, because you can always discount, right? It's great to have a special one day and to have or a special weekend, or it's Halloween and you've got this special sort of offer. But the reality is you can always go down and you can adjust it, but they hate it when it goes up. So you don't want to be changing your mind and doubling the price on everything. So I guess that's really the point, is just start high and work your way back.
I would recommend testing multiple price points and exchange rates from virtual currency to real currency. and watching which one does the best. We found some surprising results in the experiments we've done. And there's always a time to calibrate. You have to watch for inflation in your virtual economy. Do they have enough to spend it on? Do they value it enough? And multiple exchange ratios.
We actually set the original set of items we put for sale way back when by running auctions and just seeing what players were willing to pay for them. Because at the time, there was nothing to compare. We had no comparables to look at and say, well, in this game, this is worth X. So we just let the players tell us what they were willing to pay, and it worked out pretty well. And I completely agree with Dave. Go high, and then you can discount later.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Do not be shy. Is that right there?
This is a question for, Anu. So, is there a game plan for when you have users who already signed up for, 10 different offers? They've done all they can. They don't want to take any more surveys. What do they do next to get more points for whatever app?
So do you mean what other ways are there to make money from them? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
because in a platform like a multi-offer platform, you only have so many things you're going to want to sign up for.
Sure, no, I totally.
And then you're going to get remarketed to. All this data gets passed around. People will catch on, and so what's next? Because I asked myself, like, how long is this going to last? All this stuff came from, this was born out of promo channels.
Well, it's also from the. You have to think of it as the game industry too. The game industry's been around a long time, and we've tried many, many, many different ways of making money. I spoke at the Social Gaming Summit, and the Social Gaming Summit, I was asked, can we talk about the 3 different ways of making money from social games? And I'm like, 3? There's more than 3. So I started to make a list, and I looked online, and they had 8. And I ended up writing a list on the way up here on the airplane. It got to like 26 or something. Jeremy Liu put it on his blog. I kept going and got it up to 33. And Business Week have printed that. So if you go to my blog at dperry.com, you'll see there's 33 ways. And that's historically, all these systems are all listed, of course, because they're valid systems. But the point is, when you sit down to design that next game, you have a lot of different directions you can go in. It really isn't just adverts or subscriptions or microtransactions. There's a lot of different ways. And the good news is that you can combine them. So it's not like you have to choose one and stick to it. So that's really, just sit down and look at the list. I promise you'll have all kinds of ideas design-wise. You can go, I could use that, and I could use this,
I guess I was more asking specifically to the multi-offer platforms, because that's what a lot of these app developers are, using now to monetize.
Right. I think your question, I understand, is all about, well, I'm an avid game player and I'm going to be playing this forever, and I'm just out of stuff that I want to take from you. How do I pay? So just let's understand the complete scope of these systems. So first of all, if you don't want to take any offers and you're an avid game player, you can just pay. You can just pay by PayPal, mobile cash, Zong, whatever. Now, you want to use an ad-supported payment method. Okay, right, currently in the Offerpal system, there are over 2,000 offers. And we add 100 to 150 new offers every day. More importantly, we now have and are rolling out progressively over 100 direct advertiser relationships that haven't even had offers in the general performance world before. So I guarantee you, if there's a good set of consumers that an advertiser wants to target, currently, there's not going to be an issue of running out of offers. Basically, I don't see that happening since it changes every week.
We'd agree. We've never had a user who's run out of offers in our system. But more importantly, I think there's a change here that's happening in the social media space, which we talk from. It's the one way advertisers are connecting truly with the users. Everyone in this room knows the problems that's going on with the display space at the moment on the social networks. The cost per action performance space is very different, and so we're beginning to see a lot of new advertisers come into the space who've never ever considered incentivized advertising in the past. And so we only see this increasing in terms of the number of available offers that any one individual can participate in. And
there's always, we have, in our iframe, we have something called a shopping iframe, where we basically do cost per sale incentives. So, it's every single e-commerce shop that you can think of buying from is listed in there. So unless you run out of T-shirts to buy at Gap, we're not running out of offers.
Right.
Okay, so I want to thank all the members of the panel. Sorry. I want to thank all the members of the panel, and if anyone has any additional questions, you just come up here and ask them personally. Thanks a lot.